Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Bali video. In this video, I'm going to go through the top 5 places that I think are going to be the next really good investment opportunities in Bali. For those of you who've been on the channel before, you'll know that we leased land in Bingan a couple of years ago. We built our own villa, we rented it out on Airbnb for a year, and then we sold it for a very healthy profit. So I do know what I'm doing when it comes to this. I've done lots of research. I have real world experience. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I am actually a compulsive researcher and I'm really big into doing the numbers on these things. So the real estate market in Bali is going nuts at the moment. There are villas being built everywhere. The nightly prices keep going up and up. And that's purely because of supply and demand. So the amount of tourists that are visiting Bali each year are at record numbers and they're going up and up and up. And Bali want to bring more and more tourists into Bali. Currently, even though with the level of development that's happening, there is still a villa shortage in Bali. So there's still less accommodation, less quality accommodation than there are tourists to fill them. So that means that the prices just keep going up and up and people are moving out of the popular areas to go to other areas purely because they can't afford to be in the popular areas anymore. So when we built in Bingan, prices were very cheap. And over that time, they've increased in value significantly. So that's what I'm going to try to do with these top 5 is I'm going to look for value propositions, places where it might be a bit cheaper to build right now, but where I think are going to be really good areas over the next couple of years in terms of tourist numbers and in terms of nightly rental and also capital appreciation. So yeah, what I'm going to go through the land prices in these areas. I'm going to go through how much it costs to build a villa. I'm actually going to look at building 2 villas. I'm going to look at renting 2 ara of land, which is 200 square meters of land, and building 2 one-bedroom units on that land. Then I'm going to look at the average rental price for those units right now on Airbnb in these areas. I'm going to look at the occupancy rates. Spoiler, I haven't chosen any areas where occupancy rates are less than 80% right now. So I'm going to use 80% as the figure across the board. And then I'm going to go through and eventually calculate the return on investment. So yeah, let's just jump in and we'll start with number 5, which is Tabanan. Now, Tabanan is an area which is west of Canggu by about 15-20 minutes. It is known for its really luscious rice fields. They've got a lot of beaches in that area, lots of good surf spots, and it's still a very authentic way of living within Bali. So the hustle and bustle of Canggu hasn't reached there yet, but it's going to. We can already see that with Pereiranan. So Pereiranan 2 or 3 years ago was absolutely dead quiet. Now it's packed and it's already starting to move further and further along. So Tamagi and Sese, they're the same. They were dead a few years ago and there are more and more villas being built there. So the next logical one along is going to be Tanah Lot and Tabanan. So I am going to be looking at my phone for these figures because there are a lot of them and I want to make sure I get them right for you. So in my research in Tabanan right now, you can get a quality plot of land for between 5 to 10 million rupiah per ara per year. So we're going to look at 2 ara over 25 years, and that will end up being 37,500 Australian dollars. I'm going to use Australian dollars through the whole thing. The return is going to be the same whether you use Australian or US dollars, so long as the figures are accurate. So yeah, 37,500 for the land. The cost to build 2 one-bedroom units. I know that a mid-quality build costs about $1,000 per square metre. The square meterage of a one-bedroom unit, if you build it on 2 stories with a pool and a garden and everything, it's going to be about 125 square metres over 2 stories, obviously, because it's on a 100 square metre block. So to build 2 units, it will be about 250,000 Australian dollars. Which means the total cost in Tabanan would be $287,500. I've done the research on nightly returns there at the moment. It is a little bit lower right now. It's about $150 per night. We have 2 units, so that's $300 per night return. The Expected occupancy, as I said, is 80%, which means the yearly net revenue is $87,600. The expenses and taxes I've calculated at 40%. In my experience, we've obviously had that villa for a year, so I know that about 40% is a pretty good accurate number. It's a pretty conservative number. Some months it's going to be lower than that. It's very rarely going to be higher than that. So I think 40% is a nice conservative number for taxes, property management fees, salaries, maintenance, everything like that. Which means that the yearly profit is obviously the yearly net minus the expenses, which in Tabernan would be about $52,560 or 21% return on investment. So in 5 years, you could make your money back. And then within 5 years, obviously the development would have moved out that far and everything would be worth a lot more. So number 4 is Candidasa. Candidasa is on the eastern coast of Bali. It's about 2 hours away from Denpasar to the northeast. It's known as kind of like the gateway to, I guess, the snorkeling and diving of Bali. It's also near the port to get to the islands of like the Gili Islands and Lombok and places like that. But it's a place that is currently well known for having like wellness retreats and being a very quiet area to go to, very clean beaches, really nice beaches, but it's still got the infrastructure there of restaurants and bars and stuff for tourists. So I think that it is going to be a place that in the future a lot more people are going to go to, especially as they migrate away from the busy areas of Canggu and Sanur, and to a lesser extent Nusa Dua. I think that if you want to have a beach holiday in Bali and you want it to be nice and quiet, Candidasa is going to be the place to go. So that's why it's on my top 5 list. Let's go through the numbers. At the moment, you can get land in Candidasa for about 5 to 10 million rupiah per ara per year, which means same figures as Tabernan. It's $37,500, $250,000 for the building. So it's $287,500. The rentals there are a little bit more expensive than in Tabernan at the moment because it is already a tourist area. It's just not a very busy tourist area. So $180 per night, which is $360 for the 2 villas. I'm just going to say it for the 2 villas from now on. So $360 a night for the 2 villas at 80% occupancy gives you a yearly net of $105,120 with $42,000 expenses, which gives you a yearly profit of $63,072, which is a return of 25%. So Candidasa, you could potentially make your money back in 4 years. So the next one on the list is somewhere that I'm actually very familiar with. It's down in the Bukit Peninsula and it's Melasti. So Melasti is actually the southernmost point in Bali. You have a ton of beach bars and restaurants and like beach clubs and stuff down there. It's got like these beautiful cliffs. It's where all the paragliding happens in Bali. It's actually a really, really nice area. And traditionally, it's been a very quiet area. So everyone down in the Bukit has been going over to Uluwatu and Bingen all this time, or to Nusa Dua over the other side. But the bottom has kind of been ignored a bit. And it's just picking up now. So it's just starting to pick up in that area now. It's kind of almost been a bit of a hidden gem until recently. So I do know that a couple of years ago, the majority of tourists that visited Melasti were domestic tourists. Within the last couple of years, that's flipped and now the majority are foreign tourists. So obviously it's moving in the right direction and you can still get land there at pretty affordable prices. So land in Melasti is about 10 million per ara per year. So it's not cheap, but it's still not as expensive as the other places in the Bukit. So 50 grand for the land over 25 years. We've got 250 grand for the villas again. So it's a $300,000 investment to build 2 villas down there. Nightly return for the 2 villas will be about $400 a night. There is already good data in Melasti for Airbnb rentals. So we know that would be a realistic number at 80% occupancy. That would give us $116,800 a year net. with $46,720 a year in expenses and about a $70,080 profit per year, which is at 28%. So now we're starting to get into the realms of, we're talking like 3.5 years to pay off your investment. Mollusky is also an area that's going to have huge capital appreciation in the short term. So you could probably do what we did, turn around and sell your villa in a year or two's time for, I would expect, almost double what you paid. The next one on the list, we're going inland. So we're going to Cedarman. Now, Cedarman is a place that I absolutely love in Bali. It's quiet, it's authentic Bali. It's got the views of Mount Agung. It's got like beautiful terraced rice fields. You can go for walks through the rice fields. There's amazing restaurants and bars there. The people are lovely and the land is cheap. Cheap enough that I almost bought some a couple of years ago. We even paid to have some research done on the land. We paid to have some research done on the potential for investment with different scenarios and how that would look. So yeah, Cedarman is definitely up there and one of the top places I think are going to explode in Bali, and it already is starting to. The only issue that I have with Cedarman, I don't have an issue, the only issue with investing in Cedarman is because it is still so traditional, there are more hurdles to jump through when you want to build. So it's not as simple as just going to the local government office and doing the paperwork. Because the Banjar there want to protect the rice field views, and rightfully so. I think they should be doing that. But they want to protect the rice field views, so they don't want people coming in and buying up the rice field land and building villas on it. They want people to buy land that maybe isn't important for farming, but still maintains the aesthetic of Cedarman. So for that reason, if I was to build here, I wouldn't be building your normal concrete villa. I would be looking at building something more eco-friendly and sustainable, so probably bamboo villas. You could still build 2 bamboo villas over 2 ara of land. I'm going to keep the cost to build the same. Even though bamboo is cheaper, if you kept the cost the same, then you could afford to build something more luxury. And there are luxury bamboo villas in Cedarman right now that are getting sold for huge amounts of money per night. And they're beautiful. Like, they're really Instagrammable with views out over the rice fields. But yeah, let's look at the price of land in Cedarman, and it is very cheap. It's about 4 to 8 million ara, 4 to 8 million rupiah per ara per year, which is only $27,500 to get the land for 25 years. Again, 250 grand to build. You could do something a little bit more luxury than in the bamboo space, which means the cost is about 277,500. Now, the nightly return, and this is a very conservative nightly return for Cedarman, by the way, $440 for the 2 villas over both villas. If you were to build a more luxury bamboo villa, some of those luxury bamboo villas are going for $700 a night. But yeah, let's be really conservative and say $440 a night for the 2 villas. That would get at 80% occupancy. That gives $128,480 net per year with $51,392 in expenses. That gives a yearly profit of $77,000, and that puts us up into that 30% realm. We're 30.8%. And yeah, that means like you're really like 3 and a bit years and you're paid off. And then yeah, everything on top of that's profit. If you do build bamboo though, you do have to keep in mind that probably every 15 years, you're basically going to have to replace the structure. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But obviously the returns are a lot higher, so you can probably factor that into your calculations long term. And finally, the number 1 spot that if I was to invest in Bali right now, that I would choose, it's in the Bukit, it's next to where we built, and it's Balangan. Now, Balangan is the opposite side of the Dreamland complex. So you have Uluwatu down here, then you have Bingen, the Dreamland complex, and then Balangan. So it's sandwiched between Bingen and Jimbaran. But up until recently, it's still been very quiet. It's a really good surf beach. There's some great bars and stuff all along the beach, and they're more traditional Balinese bars rather than like the really expensive beach clubs. There are a couple of little beach clubs there, but they're still kind of like smaller beach clubs. They're not cheap, but they're smaller beach clubs. There's plenty of restaurants, plenty of places to eat. It's a really beautiful spot. You've got the cliffs that look out over towards the airport and down towards Bingen. And yeah, it's just a really, really nice spot. And it's still pretty affordable, although I don't think it will be for very long because I have seen the prices rise substantially in the last 12 months. So I think in the next 12 months, they're going to rise very, very quickly. But for the moment, I know that I can get land there for between 6 to 10 million rupiah per hour per year. I have seen it advertised for a lot more than that too, but I've done some research and you can still get it for that 6 to 10 million without any issues. You just have to be willing to put in a little bit more legwork. So 40 grand for the land, 250 grand to build 2 units on that land, brings a total cost of $290,000. The nightly return, easily $250 a night per villa. I've seen small 1-bedroom villas there for like $300-400 per night. So conservatively $250 per night, so that's $500 per night for 2 villas. At 80% occupancy, that gives us a yearly net of $146,000. The expenses, $58,400, yearly profit of $87,600, and a return on investment of 35%. And that means that your investment will be paid off within 3 years. So yeah, it's a little bit of a long video, guys. I hope that you've found it useful. If you are thinking about building in Bali, we do have a guide that we've made called the Bali Villa Guide, which goes through all the steps that you need for building your own Bali villa, right from finding land, building, finding your contractors, through to the vendors that we use, the shops that we bought everything from, right through into rental. And shortly I'll be adding a section in there about how to sell your Bali villa as well. So if that's something you're interested in, head to the video description, pick up a copy of it. I've made it very affordable. You can read some of the comments on some of the other videos. We've got a huge community now of people that have bought it, and a lot of them are now building their own Bali villas and finding the information in there really useful. So yeah, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Hope you guys found that useful. They're the places that I'm going to be looking at over the next year or so for our next investment. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one, and hopefully we'll catch you in a video where we're building a new villa in Bali. Bye.